saying that the future of Shedeur is up in arms. Now, it's no secret that none other than John Gruden is a fan of Shedeur for the most part. Not only just a fan, he adores Shedeur. Now, guys, I'm getting word that
he'd have to leave once Shedeur Sanders came here and all the eyes are going to be on the Cleveland Browns. We all know Jimmy Haslam loves him some Shedeur Sanders. In fact, he loves him so much that he picked him in the 5th round over the advice of Paul DePodesta, who wanted nothing to do with Shedeur Sanders. You know why he wanted nothing to do with Shedeur Sanders? Because Paul knew that he'd have to leave once Shedeur Sanders came here and all the eyes are going to be on the Cleveland Browns.
I mean, why doesn't Cleveland want to win? Why wouldn't Kevin Stefanski prepare his backup? Kevin Stefanski knows his job is not safe. And the reason why Cleveland doesn't, it's not the fact that they don't know how to win, they don't want to win. They have no clue what winning looks like. We haven't won a division since 1989. And what we do is we've been shouldered and we've been told that this guy is a great coach and he's going to get us to the promised land. And listen, fellas, people, until you are in like one of these other cities, Brian Dable just got fired. His offense is 90,000 times better than Kevin Stefanski's. They actually picked Jackson Dart instead of Dylan Gabriel, and he still got fired. This guy's hanging around, not giving backup quarterbacks reps. In what world is this cool? What world? I'm just trying to get at it. Stefanski is a dirty coach.
Jimmy Haslam just pulled the trigger on Kevin Stefanski and his entire coaching staff. And the reason why is shocking. Multiple league insiders are confirming that John Gruden is already on his way to Cleveland as soon as Monday to take over as offensive coordinator, with Jim Schwartz stepping up as head coach for the 2026 season. This isn't speculation anymore. Sources with good authority are saying this is a done deal that could be etched in stone, and it's all happening because Haslam is fed up watching his coaching staff run a high school offense that's making it impossible to evaluate Shedeur Sanders properly. But here's the bombshell that nobody saw coming. Insiders are revealing that Haslam wanted to fire Stefanski last year, but Andrew Berry, who's now gone, convinced him to give the coach one more chance, and now Haslam is really upset that he sacrificed an entire season listening to Berry's advice. The timing is absolutely wild because this comes right after Tommy Rees got exposed defending Jerry Jeudy over Shedeur, and now the entire Ivy League coaching cult is getting eradicated just like we predicted.
What's going to happen? John Gruden, Jimmy Haslam met with John Gruden. And they talked about the head coaching job, but they also talked about him coming over as the offensive coordinator for next year. And Jim Schwartz will be taking over the head coaching job. See, Haslam knows what he has in the defense. I love Jim Schwartz. And obviously the NFL knows what they have in the Browns defense. It's one of the best defenses you're going to see. And he doesn't want to lose Jim Schwartz, so the natural thing would be to either elevate him as head coach or make John Gruden the head coach and keep Jim Schwartz.
But if they decided to go with more of a culture guy to move off of this Deshaun Watson thing and bring in somebody like John Gruden, I really think that there's a good football brain in there, especially at the quarterback position. Which, if we're being honest about this entire thing, that's the Achilles heel as to why the wheels of this train have come off the track is because of the quarterback spot. Anyways,
look, I need you to understand something right now. What's happening in Cleveland isn't just another coaching change. This is a complete revolution, and it's all centered around one player, Shedeur Sanders. And the receipts are piling up fast about why this had to happen. Let me break down what's really going on here, because the mainstream media is going to try to spin this as just another failed coaching experiment in Cleveland. But that's not what this is. This is about an owner who finally woke up and realized that his entire football operation was sabotaging the most marketable, talented young quarterback he's ever had on his roster. So here's what we know from multiple league insiders who are buzzing right now. John Gruden is rumored to be the next Cleveland Browns offensive coordinator. Now, the Browns haven't made anything official yet, but multiple sources around the league are confirming that John Gruden isn't just a candidate for the Browns offensive coordinator job. He's insistently the candidate. You hear that? Not a candidate, the candidate. While the Browns have remained tight-lipped about personnel and executive decisions, people around the league are being told that the Cleveland team has been in advised discussion with Gruden. This isn't just speculation or hot takes from talking heads. This is league executives, personnel people, insiders who actually know what's happening behind closed doors, all saying the same thing. John Gruden is making his way to Cleveland, and it's happening soon.
Saying that the future of Shedeur is up in arms. Now, it's no secret that none other than John Gruden is a fan of Shedeur for the most part. Not only just a fan, he adores Shedeur. Now, guys, I'm getting word that
he'd have to leave once Shedeur Sanders came here and all the eyes are going to be on the Cleveland Browns. We all know Jimmy Haslam loves him some Shedeur Sanders. In fact, he loves him so much that he picked him.
And you know what the craziest part is? This all makes perfect sense when you understand the relationships involved. John Gruden is friends with Jimmy Haslam. They have a history together. Haslam knows what Gruden can do with quarterbacks. Gruden knows what Haslam wants. He wants to win, he wants to fill seats, he wants to sell merchandise, and most importantly, he wants to maximize the investment he made in Shedeur Sanders. Now, let me tell you why this is all happening right now. It's not just because the Browns are having another losing season. It's not just because Stefanski is 5-31 in his last 36 games. It goes way deeper than that, and it all comes back to Shedeur Sanders and how the coaching staff has handled him from day one. Here's what the insiders are saying, and this is explosive. It's no secret that John Gruden is a fan of Shedeur for the most part. Not only just a fan, he adored Shedeur. That's not me saying that. That's what people in the league are reporting. Gruden has been watching what's happening in Cleveland, and he sees what everybody with eyes can see. Shedeur Sanders is being set up to fail by a coaching staff that never wanted him there in the first place. And here's where it gets absolutely wild. Sources are saying that Jimmy Haslam loves Shedeur Sanders. In fact, he loves him so much that he picked him in the 5th round over the advice of Andrew Barry, who said wanted nothing to do with Shedeur Sanders. Let that sink in for a second. The GM who just got fired didn't want Shedeur. And you know why Barry didn't want him? Because, according to insiders, Paul knew that he'd have to leave once Shedeur Sanders came here, and all the eyes are going to be on the Cleveland Browns from afar that were never on the Browns before. He was going to get exposed, and he wouldn't be able to withstand the ongoing assault that's happening to Kevin Stefanski right now.
But more than likely, it's going to happen after the season. But it could. I'm not saying it won't happen Monday. It could happen Monday, providing on what happens Sunday. Sure. What's going to happen? John Gruden. Jimmy Haslam met with John Gruden. And they talked about the head coaching job, but they also talked about him coming over as the offensive coordinator for next year. And Jim Schwartz will be taking over the head coaching job. See, Haslam knows what he has on the defense. I love Jim Schwartz.
Read that again carefully. Andrew Barry knew that drafting Shedeur Sanders would bring so much attention and scrutiny to the organization that it would expose the failures of the coaching staff and front office. Barry knew that Kevin Stefanski wasn't good enough to develop a quarterback under the national spotlight. Barry knew that the entire Ivy League cult, as insiders are calling it, would get eradicated once people started paying real attention to how this organization operates. And guess what? That's exactly what happened. The moment Shedeur got on the field, people started asking questions. Why isn't he getting first-team reps? Why is he running a high school offense? Why is Tommy Rees protecting Jerry Jeudy when Jeudy leads the NFL in drops? Why is the coaching staff putting all this pressure on a rookie while veterans face zero accountability? The scrutiny exposed everything, just like Barry feared. And now both Barry and Stefanski are gone or on their way out. Here's what sources with good authority are saying, and when insiders say good authority, that means this is coming from people who actually know what's happening inside the building. The source said, "When I say good authority, it's a done deal. You could etch it in stone. This is happening. This could happen as soon as Monday, but more than likely, it's going to happen after the season." So let me translate what that means. Kevin Stefanski's days are numbered. Whether he gets fired Monday after this week's game or in January after the season ends, he's done. It's not a question of if anymore, it's a question of when.
And he doesn't want to lose Jim Schwartz, so the natural thing would be to either elevate him as head coach or make John Gruden the head coach and keep Jim Schwartz. But Jim Schwartz is deserving of another chance to be a head coach. He was a head coach in Detroit years ago. Jimmy Haslam loves Jim Schwartz. John Gruden and Jim Schwartz have a very good relationship. So it makes better sense for John Gruden to come over and design an NFL offense that Shedeur Sanders can actually I would like to see them lose tomorrow, so hopefully Gruden can come, because it's hard to evaluate a quarterback running a high school offense.
And here's what's going to happen, according to these same sources. John Gruden and Jimmy Haslam met with John Gruden, and they talked about the head coaching job. But they also talked about him coming over as the offensive coordinator for next year, and Jim Schwartz will be taking over the head coaching job. You hear that? Gruden and Haslam have already met. They've already discussed not just the offensive coordinator position, but potentially the head coaching job. The decision has been made to elevate Schwartz to head coach because, as the insider said, Haslam knows what he has in the defense, loves Jim Schwartz. And obviously, the NFL knows what they have in the Browns' defense. It's one of the best defenses you're going to see, and he doesn't want to lose Jim Schwartz. This is actually brilliant organizational thinking. The Browns have one of the best defensive units in the entire NFL. Jim Schwartz has done an incredible job with that side of the ball. If you fire Stefanski and don't promote Schwartz, there's a real chance he leaves for another head coaching opportunity somewhere else. So the smart move is to make Schwartz the head coach, bring in Gruden to run the offense and develop Shedeur, and keep the defensive excellence intact. As the insider explained, the natural thing would be to either elevate him as head coach or make John Gruden the head coach and keep Jim Schwartz. But Jim Schwartz is deserving of another chance to be a head coach. He was the head coach in Detroit years ago. Jimmy Haslam loves Jim Schwartz. John Gruden and Jim Schwartz have a very good relationship.
I would like to see them lose tomorrow, so hopefully Gruden can come, because it's hard to evaluate a quarterback running a high school offense in the National Football League. And that is what Shedeur Sanders is doing the last 3 weeks. He's running a high school offense in the National Football League that every defense has seen for the last 5 years. So it's hard to get an accurate assessment of what Shedeur Sanders can do in the NFL. And I think Haslam knows that. So if the Browns lose tomorrow...
So you've got all the pieces in place for this to work. Haslam loves both guys. Gruden and Schwartz have a good relationship and can work together. Schwartz gets to be a head coach again, which he deserves. Gruden gets to design an offense specifically for Shedeur. And most importantly, Shedeur finally gets a coaching staff that actually wants him to succeed instead of trying to bury him on the depth chart. Now, let me tell you the real reason why all of this is happening, and this is where it gets absolutely devastating for Kevin Stefanski and Tommy Rees. According to league insiders, here's the assessment of what Stefanski's offense has been doing to Shedeur Sanders. It makes better sense for John Gruden to come over and design an NFL offense that Shedeur Sanders can actually run, because it's hard to evaluate a quarterback running a high school offense in the National Football League. And that is what Shedeur Sanders is doing the last 3 weeks. He's running a high school offense in the National Football League that every defense in the league has seen for the last 5 years. Let me repeat that, because it's so damning. Shedeur Sanders is running a high school offense in the NFL. Not a simplified NFL offense, not a scaled-back pro system, a high school offense that every defense in the league has seen for years and knows exactly how to stop. The insider continued. So it's hard to get an accurate assessment of what Shedeur Sanders can do in the NFL, and I think Haslam knows that. You see what's happening here? Jimmy Haslam is watching his 5th-round investment, a quarterback he personally vouched for against his GM's advice, getting completely handcuffed by a coaching staff running an offense so basic and predictable that it's impossible to evaluate whether Shedeur can actually play at this level.
So hopefully Gruden can come, because it's hard to evaluate a quarterback running a high school offense in the National Football League. And that is what Shedeur Sanders is doing the last 3 weeks. He's running a high school offense in the National Football League that every defense has seen for the last 5 years. So it's hard to get an accurate assessment of what Shedeur Sanders can do in the NFL. And I think Haslam knows that. So if the Browns lose tomorrow, remainder of the year. Kevin Stefanski will be fired either Monday or definitely January. He's done. Jim Schwartz is your new head coach, Cleveland Browns fans. And like I said, this is the perfect ending to the worst 5 years where we got some talent, a great defense, and the head coach he couldn't make it work. He's 5-31 his last 36 games. The guy should have been fired.
Andrew Berry didn't want Shedeur Sanders because he knew the attention would expose the organization's failures. Jimmy Haslam overruled him and drafted Shedeur anyway because Haslam understands marketing, understands star power, understands that Shedeur fills seats and sells merchandise. Kevin Stefanski didn't want to play Shedeur because he knew it would expose his offensive limitations. He buried Shedeur behind Dillon Gabriel, refused to give him first-team reps, and when forced to play him, ran an offense so basic that it was impossible for Shedeur to showcase his talent. Tommy Rees protected veterans like Jeudy instead of developing the rookie quarterback, creating a culture where accountability didn't exist for established players, but all the pressure fell on Shedeur. Jimmy Haslam watched all of this unfold and realized he made a massive mistake listening to Andrew Berry about keeping Stefanski for another year. He sacrificed the season by doing that, and now he's ready to clean house and start fresh. And the most important piece? Maybe Jimmy in his own way knew that Berry would want out. Maybe he knew that. The insider suggesting that maybe, just maybe, Haslam knew that drafting Shedeur would force Berry out because Berry couldn't survive in an organization with that much spotlight and scrutiny. If that's true, then Haslam is playing 4D chess. He drafted the player he wanted, knowing it would expose and eliminate the front office and coaching staff that were holding the organization back, and now he gets to rebuild with a quarterback he believes in and coaches, Gruden/Schwartz, who will actually develop him properly. The insider made this point explicitly. Most importantly, he knows that he fills seats up and he sells merchandise. So Jimmy Haslam does not want to lose that, especially moving into a new stadium in a couple years. That's the business reality here. The Browns are moving into a new stadium soon. They need star power. They need excitement. They need someone who can sell tickets and jerseys. Shedeur Sanders provides all of that, but only if he's in a position to succeed. Under Stefanski and Rees, he wasn't. Under Gruden and Schwartz, he will be. Look at the timeline of how this all played out. The Browns draft Shedeur in the 5th round against their GM's wishes. They bury him on the depth chart and refuse to give him meaningful reps. When injuries force him into action, the offense is so limited and predictable that he can't possibly succeed. The coaching staff protects underperforming veterans while putting all the pressure on the rookie. And then right when the Jeudy situation exposed the double standards of the coaching staff, with Tommy Rees defending Jeudy publicly while constantly emphasizing Shedeur's coachable moments, the news breaks that the entire regime is getting blown up. Stefanski is gone. Berry is gone. Gruden is coming in. Schwartz is taking over. That's not a coincidence. That's cause and effect. The Jeudy-Shedeur situation was the final straw that exposed what everyone already knew. This coaching staff wasn't interested in developing Shedeur Sanders. They were interested in protecting their jobs and protecting veteran players who made them look good in previous seasons. But Jimmy Haslam saw through all of it. He knew what was happening. He knew his coaches were running a high school offense that made evaluation impossible. He knew his GM had never wanted Shedeur in the first place. He knew he'd made a mistake giving them all another year. And now he's fixing it, decisively, completely. The entire Ivy League cult is getting eradicated, just like the insiders predicted it would. John Gruden is coming to Cleveland to design a real NFL offense for Shedeur Sanders. Jim Schwartz is going to be the head coach and continue building one of the league's best defenses. And Shedeur's finally going to get the opportunity he deserved from day one, to play in a system designed for his skills, coached by people who actually believe in him, in an organization that's fully committed to his development. This is what we've been saying would happen for months. The scrutiny that came with Shedeur was going to expose the organizational failures. The coaching staff that resisted him would eventually pay the price, and Jimmy Haslam would eventually realize that he needed to fully commit to his investment instead of half-assing it with a coaching staff that didn't want the player he drafted. And now it's all happening. The dominoes are falling exactly the way we predicted. Stefanski is done. Whether it's Monday or January, doesn't really matter at this point. He's a dead man walking. Barry is already gone. Rees will go with Stefanski, and the new regime under Gruden and Schwartz will finally give Shedeur Sanders the fair shot he's deserved all along. The source said it best. This is the perfect ending to the worst 5 years, where we got some talent, a great defense, and the head coach just couldn't make it work. Perfect ending for Cleveland Browns fans who've suffered through 5 years of mediocrity. Perfect beginning for Shedeur Sanders, who finally gets to show what he can do in an offense designed to maximize his talents instead of minimize them. So here's my question for y'all in the comments. Is Jimmy Haslam making the right move by bringing in John Gruden and Jim Schwartz to replace Stefanski's regime, or is this just another typical Browns disaster waiting to happen? And more importantly, if Gruden takes over as offensive coordinator for the final weeks of this season, how much better could Shedeur look in an actual NFL offense instead of the high school system Stefanski was running? Because if Gruden can show in just 3 to 4 games what Shedeur is actually capable of when given proper coaching in a real offensive system, that's going to make Stefanski and Rees look even worse in retrospect. Drop your thoughts below, and if you're tired of seeing talented young quarterbacks get sabotaged by coaching staffs that don't want them there, smash that subscribe button, because we're going to keep covering this revolution in Cleveland until Shedeur finally gets the opportunity he deserves. The entire Ivy League cult is getting dismantled, and we're here for all of it. Let's talk about it.